Hello, my friend Mike.
Hey Derek, how's it going?
Help me remember, how many years were you in public education? I mean, you
As a
still are, but
as a head
officially.
band director, 31 years. As a full time head band director.
Did you notice, in your opinion, when you started versus when you retired, was there a difference in the public perception of uh, student behavior and whose fault it was that the students acted that way? That's an awkward way to say it. Let me do this different. If kids messed up when I was in school, we fully expected to be disciplined. I don't know that students fully expect that anymore. You think?
Yeah, I don't think it was ever perfect as a world, but it is harder nowadays because more of the parents, it seemed like before the parent would come in with the child if you had a conference, and we'd all be talking to the child about how they needed to correct what they did. And it seems like it's more so parents come in and they want to correct me as a teacher
Right.
because their child didn't enjoy band or they were picked on by somebody and that's why they acted out. And it's I don't know, it's I don't know if that conversation will ever be justified. You know what I mean? It's just a
Yeah,
matter
but
of how things operate.
Mike,
But
it's almost like
we've got to handle it, those directors. That's what today's podcast, we got to handle it
it almost
regardless.
feels like parents look at you and say, "My kid is an angel."
And I like to think, or sometimes it slips out, but so was Lucifer. Lucifer was an angel at one time till he was cast out of heaven. And so your child might be an angel. Okay. And I agree with you. Your child's an angel. Okay.
There's all kinds of angels.
Yeah. Yeah. There's all kinds of angels,
That's funny.
there is war in heaven. So let's not get too philosophical here. But yeah,
So help us educators out, Mike. I mean, we're the ones that actually went through a degree program studying education.
yeah, but we only had a 3 hour course on how to handle this.
Okay.
And
That's
then
fair.
that was book learning, which doesn't amount to anything. You know what
Which
I
is
mean? And
why
then
we have Ask Mike.
yeah, I hope so. But then we get out there as a first year teacher and we get slapped in the face, and it's like, oh my gosh, I think my first job was in Throckmorton, Texas, little tiny
Okay.
town. Mr. Cooksey was my superintendent, and he gave me great advice. He said, Mike, make sure to buy yourself a really comfortable chair. I go, well, I'm not going to be sitting in my chair. I said, for the first time that parent, just choose your butt. You'll have somewhere to sit and relax for a second. And he meant it facetiously, but there's some truth to that. So guys out there and ladies out there, buy you a nice, comfortable office chair. Okay. Now, what our problem is parents more so nowadays tend to justify their kids' behavior as a means of protecting them. They feel like they're protecting their kid, and I can I do respect that. I respect that they're in the corner for their kid, and we're not here to kind of help the parents become better parents. The more my hair turned gray, the more I could do that. You know what I mean? They would listen to me, but it's not our job, and we don't have the ability to correct the parents' behavior. But I wish more parents would realize that sometimes, teacher, you know, don't worry about the mountain the kid's trying to climb. Quit trying to get that out of the way. Teach the kid how to climb better, because you as a parent are not going to be there their whole life. So what's
Okay,
going to
let's
happen
say
when you die, when you pass away, and they're an adult? Now, who are they going to go to? Who's going to protect them now? So we've got to, within our construct, have situations to where they have to struggle a little bit, and they have to have accountability for what they do. Not a death penalty, but they have to face up to that, and we're trying to figure out a way to make this work within our school systems.
so let's say that again because I don't want that to escape attention. Quit trying to remove the mountain.
Right?
Equip them to climb the mountain better.
Better, yeah.
So,
And we start with little mountains, little
is
molehills.
and I would say this, and if I'm jumping ahead of you, stop me, but you are doing a disservice if you're trying to straighten the path, or maybe that's not the right way to say it. There's going to be mountains whether you try to knock them down or not.
Right. That's going to be there their whole life.
You're doing a
And
better service to your kid to teach them how to climb it than you are to how to try to get around it.
Yes. And in this podcast, I just want everyone to understand I'm talking about the 0.5% of
Okay.
the population that we're talking about. This is not a daily struggle with every kid in the program. So I don't want this to come across as really negative, but we need to figure out how to handle that 0.5% within the constructs of our administration and how we handle things to make it fair for the kid, the student, make it fair for the parent, make it fair for the admin, and for ourselves. We've got to live with this, so
Right.
we've got to figure this out. But they want to save their kids from accountability. And it's a dangerous thing. The number one rule, I think, is in any situation, whether it's musical or behavioral, attack the problem and not the student. There's
Yeah.
a difference in, you're talking too much in class and that's distracting from what we're doing each day. Instead of saying, you're so impatient and you're kind of a slow kid and you're not very smart. And so you just kind of blabbermouth the whole time. There's a difference. There's a huge difference. And in your mind, you might be thinking that a little bit. What is in our mind doesn't have to come out our mouth. You can say, this is what you're doing. This is the consequence for what you're doing. And in the words of Michael Corleone, this is business and not personal.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
just trying to run a rehearsal here, guys. And the smaller the like sixth graders, you have to do different than senior in high school. Senior in high school is pretty much an adult. A sixth grader is still a squirrely little kid. Okay. So sometimes I'll take a little more guff from a little sixth grader. It's like, oh, well, they're a sixth grader, but you got to get things lined up in order. But you always attack the problem, not the student. And so, what is wrong with you? Do you not know how to behave?
Right.
That's not the right way. It said, when you come into class, you need to come in quietly if you're late to class. I'll mark it as a tardy, but you don't need to make a big scene. That's attacking the problem.
Would you accept this statement from me? We don't create character by attacking character.
Yeah, I've never heard it put that way, but I'm going to steal that.
Yeah.
That's absolutely correct. You're not going to build up that kid. In fact, all the other kids in the program, I keep saying kids because I'm so old, but all the other students in the program, you lose credibility with those other students too. All of a sudden, the
Right.
whole
I
vibe of the
agree with
rehearsal
that.
changes because it's like, okay, now he's the taskmaster with a whip, and we're the
Yeah.
whippies. So then they get scared. So you attack the problem, and the other rest of the students go, "Hey, if I just don't do that, I won't get the consequence." Instead of, I'm fearful that Mr. Lunney's going to jump onto something and get after me. And have I made mistakes in this? Yes. You know,
What?
there's been many a time when things have come out of my mouth. I'm thinking, I can't believe I just said that.
Yeah.
And then you have to go back and apologize. If it's in front of the band, you made the mistake, you apologize in front of the band, that moment. So I guess what I'm saying is we're holding the kids accountable, but we have to hold ourselves accountable too. Because if you
Sure.
don't, the admin will, and rightfully so,
Sure.
and have in
Well,
my lifetime with
it's
me.
it's one of those things again, back to uh 50 years ago versus now. I'm not sure we're not living in a more litigational world, and admin is always going to take the path that avoids that.
Yeah, they try to. They really do.
And I'm not talking ugly about them. I understand why and what they're doing,
Because they have bosses too.
but it's the consideration.
Yeah, it's definitely the
Yeah.
consideration. Some things to consider. Part of your job is to hold students to the standards of your program. That's assuming those standards are reasonable. So to be fair to all the students, you have to have a certain standard of how we behave, what we do in our class, what's acceptable within our class. But we live in a society where accountability is all well and good for everyone else, right up until it impacts that one kid, and they want to be judgmental on another kid, but they want mercy and grace for their kid. That's a John Wooden quote.
Right.
Okay, the great basketball coach. He said, because he taught English when he was in high school teaching basketball before he went
Right.
to UCLA and did his thing. But yeah, that quote's always stuck with me. They want justice for the other child. They want mercy for their child. And so that was happening in 1930. It's just now more prevalent. Okay.
And
So
I think
we
it's
gotta kinda
easier
watch
to,
out for it.
if we can remember, again, we've had this conversation in episodes before, but we tend to judge other people based purely on their action. We judge ourselves on the intent. That's not what I meant. I didn't mean that way. it's easy for us to be forgiving with ourselves. Maybe in the conversation that you're having, if we can translate that to them, let's here's the action. But justify that for me. No, not justify it. Help me. You said attack the action or the situation, not the student.
Right,
But
attack the
is it
problem, not the
but
student.
is it good to have the mentality of understanding where that kid's coming from? Is there more going on behind the scenes? That just kind of struck me in your
Oh,
conversation.
well, there has to be some mercy. I've had a situation before where a mom or a dad has called me and said that they were splitting, and they just told they were getting a divorce, and they just told their child that night before, and they just wanted to prep me for it because we had a band contest the next day.
Yeah.
And so if the kid comes in and gets really kind of obnoxious at something, it's like, you pull them to the side. There's definitely mercy involved,
Well,
so we have
kudos
got
on
to have
them.
communication. Yeah.
Kudos on them for that. But I'm still back to the wooden comment that most people who commit the infraction are going to have a sense of justification that I wasn't trying. Maybe they were. I'll shut up. I'll let you move on.
Well, I tell you what, I'll just put a bow on that. It's fact this problem happened with Adam and Eve and God. So we're trying to fix things that are inherent in our DNA, and
There you go.
we're
Okay.
not gonna fix them, Derek. We're not gonna fix them. All I'm talking about in this podcast is how do we make our job correct, and how do we treat the kids and parents and admin correct to make this where we don't drive each other crazy? Because
And all I was trying to say was,
it's almost like saying people don't need to eat anymore.
if we get mad and we think that that kid's the only person that ever caused it a problem, then we're probably approaching it wrong. If we're like, you're just an idiot, instead of, no, this kid's still fighting the same things that Adam and Eve fought.
That's right. That's right.
So let's
For
move
my
forward
atheist
and figure
friends,
out how
I
to fix this.
apologize for the biblical reference from all of my atheist band directors out there. But it was just done as an analogy, a metaphor. I don't even know which one it is. Okay, that's how
Right.
bad I am at English. Okay, but before any accountability measures, consequences are implemented, you must have an understanding of what is acceptable in your district. You
Okay.
need to know the policy of your school system. You need to know that. You need to read that. You need to read the school board policy on discipline. Because if what you're doing doesn't fit that policy, they're going to leave you hung out to dry, rightfully so. Okay.
Sure.
Whatever the administrator's approach to that policy, because now there's a little bit of interpretation. Now, your assistant principal is usually the principal of discipline. Okay. For example, I could come up to my assistant principal and say, "Hey, good morning, boss. Asking for a friend. What would you tell someone who hypothetically had students start accepting bets on the upcoming football game? What type of consequence could you support for that behavior? Hypothetically speaking," and then listen to them. Because you haven't admitted that this is going on, but then they'll say, well, that kid will probably serve like 4 days DAEP and they'll be suspended and blah, blah, blah. And they say, no, we're just going to talk to them. So get a feel from that assistant principal. And then you can go back to the kid and go, hey, this is what we're doing. This is not acceptable. You can't do this in our program. And we're going to talk to the assistant principal, but my recommendation is going to be 3 days DAEP and suspension. But you've already done that with your administration. So it looks like it's coming from you because it is, but it is now supported at least up the first chain of command. Okay. And kind of like I said earlier, this is business, not personal. If you get, and I've made that mistake, if you get emotional about it and you get angry about it and you strike out about it, then you're just pouring gasoline on a fire. You've got to keep it as, this is what we're doing. This is what you did. This is what I have to do. You made your choice. I made my choice. And in your mind, you're thinking, and I've already talked it all the way, if it's big time, like alcohol on a bus, I've already talked about it all the way up to the superintendent before I even spoke to the child and parent. So I need to know if they're going to support me, because if they don't support me, I lose everything.
See, I should have kept quiet because you just verbalized what I was trying to say.
Yeah, so give me a chance, Derek. Come on, man. It's Ask Mike. I'm just messing with you.
I know. But my point is, we remained calm because we know what the standard is. We know what the rules are. It doesn't matter what all. If you get emotional, it just drags everything out and it
Yeah.
amplifies and it blows everything up. Instead of realizing this is just a kid messing up. Here's the
Yeah.
rules. Here's how we fix it.
And just get emotional with someone else. You wouldn't believe how many phone calls I get from a band director that, hey, Mike, you can't believe this happened. Blah, 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 blah. No, thank you for venting. Have a good day. Bye. Just have
Well,
someone you can vent to. You just can't vent to the admin or the parent or the child. Have someone you can open up to and get it out of your system. Type that 4-paragraph email, but don't hit send.
don't hit
Delete.
send.
Type it out, get it out of your body, and then
It's
look at
funny
it and
though.
go, delete.
Personal experience. My kids will tell you, and they don't. My kids aren't music educators, so they may or may not just get back to them. But when they were little, I used to sit down and say, "All right, now what rule did we violate? What is the? We talked about that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what did we say the consequence would be? And so I always tried to do that part of it before the consequence actually happened. And one
That's
of
a
my
beautiful
kids,
method, by the way. That's
one
a
of my
beautiful
kids was
method.
probably 12 or 13, and he had that glassed over look because I was saying, "Tell me what we did wrong." Blah blah blah. And he finally said, "Dad, could we skip the psychology and could you just beat my butt and we can move on?"
But they said that, but in their mind, they did appreciate the fact that, because, well, they were uncomfortable with the fact you were holding them accountable because
Right.
you were making them vocalize what was happening. That's a beautiful way of doing it. I love doing that with kids. Like, and why did you do that on the bus? Do
Right.
you realize that's against our policy? Would you, just make them think a little bit? Okay.
And
Some
my best point was like, and what do we both know is the consequence if this happens?
Yeah, it's not me versus you. There's a
Right.
consequence for every action. Newton's laws, okay? That's actually not Newton's laws, but it works. Okay, some things to remember when dealing with that parent. They will be emotionally charged.
Yep.
Oh my goodness. However, as a professional educator, we are not to sit there and be yelled at, or over a phone to sit there and be yelled at. If they're emotionally charged and they get raving about something, that's when we shut it down quick. We just go, sorry, I don't get paid enough to get yelled at. So either you're going to settle down and we're going to talk about this, or I'm going to hang up this phone, or they said either you're going to leave this office or I'm going to leave you in my office. Said, and
Right.
we will meet with the principal and we will have this discussion again. You are not to sit there and let a parent yell at you. And I won't say the name, but I thought it was brilliant. There was a band director that had a big, giant mirror behind their desk. You know what
Okay.
for? So the angry parent could see how stupid they look when they were pissed off. Think about that. So the parent would be, they'd see themselves go, they'd see how
Right.
ridiculous it is, and I thought that was brilliant, by the way. If I was teaching full time again, I'd get me a big giant mirror behind my desk so that they could see exactly. Why do you have a mirror? Well, we study embouchures. We do lessons, but then when all that's over with, document their behavior, write it down. You do not have to take this. You don't have
Right.
to take that kind of behavior, okay? And they will be emotionally charged as their kid, and they're fighting for their kid, whatever, But you
And
do
they may
not
be
have to take
embarrassed.
and they're embarrassed. You don't have to take that abuse. Just shut it down, and then it's kind of cool because then all of a sudden it becomes not your problem anymore. Now it's bumped up the chain, okay?
Right.
If they disagree with whatever, we get through that. If they disagree with the consequences, they have the right as a parent to walk it up the chain of command. They can go to the assistant principal, the head principal, the assistant superintendent, the superintendent. They can put themselves on the agenda for a school board meeting, because their kid talked in class and gave them a consequence. But here's the cool part: since you've already done your due diligence, you know exactly what's going to happen on the chain of command.
Right.
You know
Right. Right.
exactly what's going to happen. And in fact, even if some administrator changes their mind and all of a sudden they kind of leave you hung out to dry a little bit, that's not necessarily a good thing. But if that does happen, and it will at times, you just have to accept it. Again, it's
Right.
business, it's not personal. You you got the rug pulled out from under you, and you just got to shut your mouth and deal with it, or find a different place to work. You
Sure.
can try to talk to other higher administration people about that one administrator, but those things will happen because. And the other thing to kind of think about: really work hard as a director that it's facts only. It's not the opinion. I'll give you an example. I just feel that Mike's behavior is setting a bad example for the class.
Hmm.
If you say that to a parent and a kid, the word feel and applying it to your perceived impact on the class, that's where you're going to get torched.
Yeah.
You will get torched. I mean, rightfully so. I have been torched. You know, I feel like their behavior is not correct. No, they did this behavior. This is the consequence. There's no feeling here. Okay.
Right.
That's emotion and opinion versus the facts of what's happened. And man, is that hard. You know, you just got to kind of deal with it in that on that level. Just watch your wordage. You know?
Can I?
Yeah, yeah.
Whether it's the school handbook or the band handbook, I teach my managers to use our handbook, and you can say on page so and so of this manual, it says that we are not going to act this way, and we acted that way. So here's the clear cut. This is not me being rude to your kid. This is documented. You signed the handbook.
Yeah. And a different way to approach what I said before is I could say it is Mike continues to talk and disrupt the instructions. He does this multiple times in each class. And after several verbal warnings, it's now my turn to contact you as a parent.
Right. And we document this stuff. Right.
Yeah, and I know it. And as far as band handbooks, this is kind of a tangent, but actually does perceive to this. I think the less rules you have in your band handbook, generally the better off you are. Never say, if they do this, this is the consequence.
No, but I would think that you would put in there students are expected to be respectful of time,
Yeah,
of each other, and we're violating that.
that's
We're being
right.
disrespectful.
That's right. Yeah, I think that's a great way. I think a band handbook can simply be we will respect each other, we will respect the equipment, we will respect the room.
And it's not, I feel.
And that covers
It's right
everything.
Yeah.
And if
I
not,
get
there
it.
will be consequences given to you in relation to the action you just did. You know, and you leave it open where it's not, because as soon as you put a certain consequence for a certain behavior, then your homecoming queen nominee valedictorian will fall into the rut and do this, that whatever that is.
The silly
Now
thing, right?
You got to massacre that one kid. Because
Right.
that's what's in the handbook, you know. So,
So
be careful. Leave your handbook a little open-ended where it has a little bit of interpretation. You know.
Let me ask you this too. I assume that there's a way you do this, so I'm asking. I record these and tell
Yes,
people
I recorded.
I've
I
got
recorded
recording.
every. Yeah,
Okay, so I'm just making sure that we say the unsaid things out loud. I'm not going to get into a he said, she said if it moves up the chain.
that's right. And the parent doesn't know I'm recording
Okay.
because we're, at least in Texas, we're a one-side consent for recording conversations and phone calls. Other states are different, so be careful out there, guys. You know, it might be both sides have to consent to something being recorded, but even, you know, with modern technology, with our iPhones and so forth, I could just do voice memo and just keep it in my pocket, and it would record everything that happened. That way, if a principal asked, "Is this what they said?" So, well, let me play it for you. You know,
Right.
and you don't have to have consent from the parent. Sometimes it's beneficial if the parent's angry to set the phone on the desk.
By the way,
And say, by the way, we are going to record this meeting. If you disagree with that, then we'll have to go ahead and just cancel the meeting, and we'll schedule another one with an assistant principal, and just wait for them to answer, and just and turn it on. Because sometimes that keeps things under control. So
Right.
I've done it both ways. Okay. As anger sets in, parents mad, disagree with you, they assigned appropriate consequence. You know, they have a remedy. If they don't like this, they can walk it up through the administration. Know that this is going to end. I should say this. Know where this is going to end when the parent pushes it. You know, and how far your administration will allow them to push it. Because sometimes they'll just shut it down. Assistant principals say, "Well, you know, you can go to the head principal, you know, but that's not going to do any good." You know, and another little tidbit to put in there: never skip a chain yourself
I
of
agree.
command. You know, because
100%.
and I've made that mistake, just not thinking, I'll just go to the head principal and see him in the hallway and say, hey, yeah, this happened in class today. And then the head principal at this time was really a smart gentleman. And he goes, don't do that. And I go, what? Said, now you've poisoned the well. Said, I want you to talk to the assistant principal next time this happens. Then when it gets to me, I've not heard of the situation. And that makes it more proper.
Right.
And he's right. He was right. I can't just call the superintendent and go, hey, this is what happened in class. And then he's going like, this has to go up assistant principal, assistant soup, whatever your chain is. Make sure it's there. That you do that correctly. Don't skip any links of the chain. Okay.
And
it's
I also
hard not
think
to
it's
do.
important as the first link in the chain to just be very congenial. Sure, you are more than welcome to do that.
Yeah, and I spell it out for them that way. So then,
Right.
if you don't like these consequences, and if you have a problem with how I'm doing this, then as a parent, you have the right to walk this up the chain. The next one will be Mr. Boone, the assistant principal of discipline here at our campus, and I'll even give him the office phone number, and said, here's his extension. Said, this is your right as a parent, and sometimes that helps diffuse things because the parent's like,
Right.
well, okay.
So
Instead
same,
of, I'm going to get your job.
same but different. We've had people in our store say, I need to talk to your supervisor. And they'll go to that person. And then they'll say, well, I don't like your answer, so let me talk to the next person. And when it gets to me, I always say, so what did our manager say?
Yeah.
And they'll say, well, they said no. And that's exactly right. So
Yeah.
how can I help you?
As long as us people at the bottom end of that do our job right, then we will get the support from the higher ups.
Right.
And then we're doing our job right. And in the long run, not only are we doing our job right, but we're making it where it's a good educational program for all the other kids.
Right. Agreed.
You know. And sometimes, removal kids from the program, that should be a rare occurrence. I think I can count on one hand the number of kids I've kicked out of band, in 31 years, maybe 4 or 5 kids. And that's a really end consequence because we really want these kids to be in music. We want them to be in our program if at all possible. If it does get to that level, just make sure you got everything documented, that you've done the chain of command, you've done everything you're supposed to do. And if you take care of your business in your band hall, with most administration, if you pull that card every once in a while, they'll support you. But be aware, don't pull that card until you've talked to your administration.
Right.
So, there was one time I was wanting to remove a kid from band, and I told them and the parents that I'm going to get you removed from band because this is the whole series of events that have happened over the course of a year and a half, and this is just how it's going to be. And then the principal goes, well, we really don't have anywhere to put them. We're going to have to, why are we going to pass that problem on to another teacher? And I was like, oh my God, I just screwed up.
Or
So just
we can
make
do
sure
that at
that
semester.
Yeah. Just make sure you know the system because you will, just like Mike Lunney did, you will look like an idiot at a very inappropriate time, and you're just sitting there going, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe I just did that," And so because your emotions take over, and even though it's been a long road, you just kind of break at the end and just say, "This is what I'm going to do," and
Right.
so
Do you
it's something to think about.
listen? Usually, if it's gotten to this point, I realize it's either a major infraction or a series of minor infractions that have led to this point. We're
Right.
having a parent conference. But
Yeah.
do you ever wonder if maybe the parents are just not seeing the big picture and the benefits of this program for their kid, and they say, "Well, I'm just going to take my kid out of here," and maybe even the kid didn't want to get kicked out of band; they were acting up about something completely different. I guess I'm creating scenarios for you that don't really matter. But sometimes I feel like parents, in their embarrassment and their overreaction, react in a way that winds up in the worst end for the kid.
Yeah. And I will say this in regards to what you said. We should never be looking to bounce kids out of a band.
No, I got
If
it. Yeah.
no, but let me finish. The bounce kids out of band, especially if their parents are clearly part of this maturity or behavior issue. Sometimes
That's
the
what
parents
I'm
are more
saying.
immature than the kid. We as a band director, we might be the only type of authority and accountability that child's ever seen.
Right. Insanity.
Ever. ever. So that's a tough deal because you want to have the kid held accountable. And I'm not trying to defend a bad behavior, but sometimes the parents are the problem. And
Right.
the kid does whatever they want to, and the parents have no control over anything. So the kid misbehaves in band because that's how they were taught to behave. And then they want to do better. Then the parents get all irate because you made a consequence. They had to come in after school 2 days this week and practice in a practice room for 30 minutes, and that was their punishment or whatever it is you assigned. And all of a sudden, the parents in there. So there's times I've accepted, if that's the right word, some bad behavior, as long as it doesn't infringe on another kid. We're not talking about something they did to another student, but just not behaving within the context of your program. I try to
Right.
withhold a little bit of that justice when I know the parents are just raging lunatics.
Sometimes,
I mean,
I guess what I was saying is sometimes those meetings are an aha moment. Ah, I understand now.
yeah,
I
yeah.
see.
Yeah,
I
you meet
see
with the
where
parent
this
and
is.
go, oh,
Yeah.
we don't need
Right.
to have a conference. I've got this all figured out now. Yeah, that does happen. And we're talking a small, tiny percent, okay? And you don't have to agree with the parents and their attempts to
Right.
justify behavior,
Right. Right.
but it will make you angry and frustrated that they can't see it the way you see it. Give that up.
Yeah.
There's some people that are intelligent, there's some people that are not intelligent. You're not going to make a parent who's behaving this way become intelligent and understand what you're saying. Just drop it. Just go up the administration, do what consequences are needed, and regardless of the parent in that situation. So it's their baggage. It's not your baggage.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Right.
You have no business owning that or letting it wreck your day. It's just business. Even if they are trying to make it personal, which they will, it's your fault, Mr. Lunney. You're not doing this right. You're a pathetic teacher. You don't like kids. I know 15 parents who think you're an idiot, Mr. Lunney. These are all real quotes.
Right.
I know 50. I think you're the worst band director the school system's ever had. The real quotes. Because the parent's angry, and you just sit there and kind of, as long as they're not yelling, if they're just talking, I just kind of shake my head. And then what I usually do is I just get a piece of paper and I go, would you like to write down all the ways I'm incompetent, please? Because I'd love to have a record of this because I could start working on these things and I'll go to my administration and we can put it in my service file. And I'm just kind of being a jerk at that moment. It's not
Right.
the best way to do it, but boy, it sure does shut them up.
But you're
Because then they go,
calmly being a
yeah,
jerk.
yeah. And say, could you write down those 15 parents that agree with you? Oh no, I'm not going to throw them under the bus. No, there aren't 15 parents that are. It's
Right.
like when the kid comes in and says everybody's quitting band. Who's everybody?
Right.
Well, everybody. Well, for some reason we have more kids in band next year than we've had in the history of the school system. So it must be you and your best friend. I don't know. So
Right.
why are you quitting band? Will you write down on this piece of paper why you're quitting band? And just kind of make it analytical instead of emotional. So I'm not really trying to be a jerk. I guess it comes across as being a jerk. I guess it does, and that's okay too. But I'm just being analytical, and it's like just instead of you just casting out these quotes, can you write down, is it how I plan bus trips? Is it how I teach music? Is it my understanding of score study? Is it my understanding of how to write drill? And the
Right.
parents like, oh, he's calling my bluff.
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, and it's all their baggage. So I don't know. It's kind of went off on a little bit of a tangent, but that's kind of the way it is. All right. And the largest wild card that's in this whole process, and we already talked about it. If you've gone up the chain of command and you've talked to them all, and then someone changes their mind. So don't be unduly surprised if you get overturned.
Yeah.
Okay, it's going to happen. Okay, so some administrators are scared of conflict. Um, Kids learning to read and write is very important. School safety is very important, but a really close third is legal issues. They are
That's
scared to death of getting sued, and rightfully so, I suppose. But they want the kids in a safe place. But they will run from some situations, even if it's in the school policy. Well,
right.
Mike, we just don't need to do it this way because I'm pretty sure they're going to do something here, and they're gonna make a big point about this. And if it does happen, you just have to kind of, I hate to say it this way, you just have to shut your mouth and go with it. Just go, yes, sir, or yes, ma'am, and
Right.
then go vent to somebody. But then you just go about your business, and it'll all work out. Okay.
But the truth is reality is what reality is. Doesn't mean it's right or fair. You're not going to feel good about it all the time, but it's still the reality.
Yeah, you can. I guess the best way to say it too is you can do everything right and still look like it's wrong. And that's life, man.
Right.
So you just got to kind of shut your mouth and just go about your business and know that you can't trust that particular administrator again. So now
That's
you
true
know
too.
exactly what they're thinking. So I kept it in a file, you know,
Yep.
how all these things happen. I had the administrators' names and how they approach different things for my benefit. And then when I leave the school, I shred the file. I never share that file with anybody. But on a scale of 1 to 100, do they have good character? I hate to say it that way, but I rated them, like adjudicated
Yeah.
them. On a scale of 1 to 100, are they a 90 or are they a 20 as far as personal character? As far as being deceitful, are they by the book? Are they a stand up person? And I just rated them and I put down all the characteristics of their personality and how they handled their business. And that was for me to use only.
Right. Well, and I've had people say this to me before that, I've told you I'm an emotional person. I try to stay calm and work through steps before I allow any of that emotion out. But at some point, I've had people say this to me: Is this going to be worth the cost?
Yeah.
Is this fight
Is
worth
the
the
juice
cost?
worth the squeeze?
Or do you just say, I already know this administrator works this way, works this way, works this way. So why am I going to get worked up over it? It's not going to
Yeah.
change. So I'll
Yeah,
be
it's like
quiet. Go ahead.
everything in life. We just have to figure out the people around us, you
I
know,
agree.
and figure out how they do things, whether it's a music store or an engineering firm or attorneys in a law firm. We have to figure
Right.
out all the people around us to do it. And also, from my experience, some points to consider is the accountability consistent with handbooks and policy. Just make sure you stay within those contexts. Is it reasonable to assume it will deter the student from behaving that way again? Think about
That,
that.
that's it. Yeah.
Because I always say, and this was taught to me by my mentor, Greg Miller. He said, when you give a consequence or tell the band a consequence, if you do this, this is what will happen. Every kid in their mind makes a decision. They go, that might be worth it.
Yeah.
So they
I
might
got it.
not behave. They go, well, yeah, that's the consequence. I'm going to try that. I'm going to try that because that consequence isn't that bad, and I probably won't get caught. It's like I'm going to go 15 miles over the speed limit because I'm in far west Texas and I can't even see a house. Yeah.
Right.
And then all of a sudden a DPS pulls out from behind a billboard. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So we all make those decisions. We know what the consequence is, but we all make those decisions. Some other points to kind of think about: accountability for kids should never be weaponized. We're not using that to make them feel like they're a failure, that they're useless. It's just a matter of kind of like the DPS thing. The DPS officer doesn't pull me over to give me a ticket because he doesn't like me.
No, I agree.
He's doing his job. So we have to be kind of that DPS mindset as a band director. This is what happened. Now I've got to decide: am I going to let him off with a warning, or am I going to give him a speeding ticket? So we've got to figure that out in our mind.
Right. And listen, I think that just harkens back to the points we made earlier. This is not an emotional thing ever from our side of it. It can't be.
Yeah. Sometimes we let it
Beyond
be, but we've got to fight it.
beyond do you understand this program, the what this program means to me, and I cannot allow this behavior. That's okay emotion.
Yeah.
As
Yeah.
opposed to, and you said it, we're attacking the problem.
Yeah. Not the
This is
kid
a
or the
problem
parent.
for this program. It would be any kid. It would still be a problem for this program, not just yours. Any kid.
Right.
This is a problem. So it's the same thing with the DPS. They're not looking for my white Yukon. White Yukon's got to stop him, give him a ticket today.
And I'll tell you, with holding kids accountable, and you know how people do things. I was teaching in a school, so it wasn't at Wiley. It was earlier in my career, and the superintendent's daughter had brought some alcohol on the bus. for a game. It's like tequila with Coke, which is a strange combination anyway. But,
Yeah.
yeah, but she, of course, the kids ratted on her. And so I'm talking to her after band the next day, and she goes, well, my dad's the superintendent. And I go, well, let's call him. So I picked up my office phone, called him, said, Mr. So-and-so, this is what's happened, whatever. Said, I'm just now telling you about it. And she informed me that her father is the superintendent. And he goes, give this phone to my daughter. And I had not checked beforehand, but luckily he was on my side and all that, because he was so upset that the daughter was trying to be protected because he was the superintendent. Right. She didn't realize she was a younger kid. She didn't realize that that's actually a negative. Because he's going to have to.
He has no choice.
The hammer is going to drop, girl. And it was all done fairly and whatever. But I would like to finish with this. For me, there's all kinds of stressors in our jobs as directors. For me, parent anger, disciplining students, and going through this process is the worst part of teaching. I hate that more than anything. But if you follow the plan, at least you'll know the outcome for the most part. And everything we do, just kind of back it up emotionally and just realize everything you do must be in the best interest of, first of all, the students, then possibly my own mental health, and then for the program. And if you can do that, you can look yourself in your face in the mirror in the morning and go, I did it right. Now, did it work out? Maybe not, but I did it right. Instead of I got mad, started screaming at a kid and kicked him out of band and in the middle of a rehearsal. You know what I mean? So just take that for what it's worth. For me, it's the part I hate worst about teaching. I hate that more than teaching drill. Okay?
So saying all that, is it a fair statement for me to say there are no magic elixirs, there are no panaceas, there is nothing that will guarantee that this never happens to you? It's probably more likely when it's going to happen as opposed to if it will happen.
Yeah,
talking about an angry parent.
It's going to happen,
So instead of head in the sand avoiding, what I hear you saying is go ahead and determine your plan now.
Yes.
That this is the smart way to handle this when it happens.
Yes.
Nobody wants it to happen. Nobody's saying, oh my gosh, it happened to you. Yeah, it happened to you. It happens to all of us.
Yeah. And it's funny, just a little side story, but it's, with my gray hair and age and whatever, I'll go clinic at a school, and bigger school, some angry parent will come in and they will shoot right towards me. Because I look like
the guy in charge.
You must be the guy in charge because you're old, out of shape, and decrepit. So you must be the one in charge. And blah, 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 and I'll go, whoa, time. I'm just a guest. Head director's right there. But it does trigger some emotions. It's like my mind starts going back to those times. But it's so nice now to go, time, I'm just here as a guest. There's the one you want to be mad at. Like,
right.
And then it becomes their problem. But I just find that amusing. They see the gray hair and say, he must be in charge. No, I'm just old. I'm not in charge. But this will happen to you. I think it's the hardest thing for first-year teachers to deal with, because the first-year teachers, and all of us, we, for the most part, we were the good band kids.
I agree.
Those other kids got punished because they didn't do things right. And so we just have this weird feeling when we're a first-year teacher that, man, every kid loves music and every kid wants to be in band, and they're all like me when they're not. Some are there because their mama made them be in band. Some of them, dad still had 6 payments on the instrument, so he's not going to let you quit. Some, their girlfriend's in band, so they join band, but they don't want to really do band. They just want to be around their girlfriend. There's a lot of things going on in that program, every program. So
got to have a fine arts credit, and this is how I'm getting it.
Yeah, just get that out of your mind. It's going to happen to you. Okay.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thanks for your wisdom on that. It's not necessarily something that makes us all go, man, I'm excited for this to happen.
Yeah, I know.
I can't wait because now I know.
Yeah. And probably through the podcast, teachers can hear at moments the anger in my voice.
And I can also hear
the most pleasant podcast.
Well, Mr. Angry Parent, I was listening to Ask Mike, and he says, here's a piece of paper. Don't do that unless you have a few years on the gig. Well, my friend
Mike
Lunney,
follow the process.
Have an awesome week. I
I
hope
will.
that you see only happy things this week, and we'll talk again soon, my friend.
All right, sounds good. Thank you, Derek.